Welcome to the Voice of All Things. For over 5 years now, I have held a certain theory near and dear to my heart. I have at times wavered in my conviction when it comes to this theory, but something happened a few chapters ago that solidified my belief 100% in its validity. So, when I looked online and found out I was completely alone in this particular belief, I was somewhat surprised. It's time to convert some true believers to the Law will be the next Straw Hat Club. Here is my undeniable proof that Law will join Luffy's crew. Now, there's a list of criteria that is examined when a character is introduced that is usually considered the potential candidate criteria. Unless, of course, they are a girl, then they are just expected by the community to be the next Straw Hat. Now, we'll get to each of the criteria in a moment, but before we do that, let's talk about a few things that help Law's case outside of these criteria. Firstly, is the panel that ignited my belief in Law in the first place. It was in chapter 748. There we see Luffy straight up saying that Law was on his crew. Now, many people, understandably, did not take this as evidence at face value, since Law denied that he was on Luffy's crew. But it got me thinking, doesn't this remind anyone else of a certain panel featuring Sanji in the manga? Because this is the same interaction Luffy had with him when they first met. In other words, we can't take Law's denial as being permanent. Luffy has worn down a lot of people into joining his crew in the past. But, you may say, a lot of people have turned Luffy's requests down. Well, let's look at them and see if they have anything in common with Trafalgar D water law. Obviously, some of the people Luffy has invited to the crew were invited just because they look cool. We're talking about the Punk Hazard Centaurs, the Thriller Bark Zombies, and Kinemon's Legs. Unlike Law, who Luffy has already stated was his friend, these are not set up narratively to be crewmates. But I really don't think we have to go too deeply into that. Although, on 2 occasions, the things that Luffy saw that looked cool actually turned out to be people with skills Luffy wanted for the crew, so we got Brook and Chopper. But once again, their narrative significance cannot be understated. They fulfilled a lot of the other criteria necessary for being on the crew, most importantly, being Luffy's friend. And do you remember what Luffy considers an alliance between him and Law? That's right, friendship. Then there's the random people Luffy has invited because they have useful skills. We're talking Iceberg, Crocus, and Kureha. Now, they too are different from Law. Luffy doesn't need a doctor. For all we know, Luffy doesn't even know Law is a doctor. Luffy has complete faith in Chopper for that. No, Luffy asked Law to join, once again, because of their friendship. A friendship, mind you, that has grown considerably since they first met. No one can deny that Law has grown closer to the Straw Hats. He has become sillier with them, he has opened up to them, and he is willing to die with them. Now, that only leaves Gaimon and Vivi, the 2 people Luffy may have considered friends that actually turned him down. However, unlike Luffy, their dream did not involve sailing to the Grand Line and finding the One Piece. Gaimon was scared of the Grand Line, and his dream was fulfilled by Luffy when he was on the island of strange animals. That is, to unlock the chests that were hiding there. After that, Gaimon had a new call, to protect the animals on the island. Meanwhile, Vivi's desire was to protect her homeland, something we knew from the beginning. That didn't change after Luffy saved it, and her place remained there. What makes Law different from these two? Well, we'll get into his dream in a minute. But before we get into that and consider the other fan-made qualifications for being a Straw Hat, I did want to mention one more thing about Law. He saved Luffy and was his ally before the time skip. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but a lot of people have used it in their reasoning of why Jinbei will join and why they believe Smoker will join, so I'm going to use it too. Law joining the crew is an idea sprinkled throughout the story, not told all at once. So now let's talk about if he has the same qualifiers as the rest of the crew, or if he's just going to be another Vivi. First of all, there's the sad backstory. Notably, Vivi did not have a sad backstory. She had a pretty happy childhood. Not that that matters for our argument, but it is true. Law, on the other hand, oh boy, he did. Perhaps one of the most brutal backstories in the entire series. After the loss of everyone he knew and loved, including his parents and his dear little sister, he was treated as an outcast by the world. His dream ended up being to kill as many people as possible before illness took his life prematurely. Then, he met Corazon, who gave him a new hope, only to have that hope dashed apart when his adopted father was murdered by Doflamingo. The second qualifier that maybe not a lot of people talk about, but that we've definitely noticed in every Straw Hat, is that Luffy saves them. Sometimes they need Luffy to protect the people they love, like in the case of Jinbei and Usopp, and others actually need Luffy to save their hide, like Zoro and Robin. And sometimes it's both, like with Sanji. What about Law? Well, we had 100 chapters dedicated to Luffy saving Law and freeing him from Doflamingo. Law had spent the last 13 years wanting nothing more than to kill Dolphy, but when he failed, Luffy put Doflamingo 6 floors under. And don't tell me that this panel doesn't give you, Luffy, help me, vibes, because it certainly reminds me of that scene with Nami. The next qualifier a lot of people look for is, what will this person's role be on the crew? Now, this is the biggest reason a lot of people aren't on the Law Sea train. What will he be? We already have a doctor. Well, let me ask you something. When did we learn Usopp's role on the crew? What about Zoro's? Jinbei's? Robin's? Robin initially applied to the crew as the crew's assassin. And to be honest, Luffy asked Brook and Chopper to be on the crew for reasons completely unrelated to their skills. Now, from a narrative standpoint, yes, you can make the excuse that we as readers knew Zoro, Brook, and Chopper's roles before they officially joined. Not that Zoro has ever been officially called a first mate though. He's officially the swordsman, something we do now have two of. In other words, I'm making 2 points here. 1, Law can have doctor skills, but be considered something other than the ship's doctor. And 2, we may not know his role until he joins, just like we didn't know the roles of half of the members of the crew before they joined. And of course, Oda could drop the bombshell of what Law's position could be at any moment, just like he dropped the bombshell of what Law's dream was randomly. Because what a person's dream is one of the most important qualifiers for joining the Straw Hats. And this little gem about Law was dropped in chapter 996, and what was solidified this theory in my mind. Oda gave Law a dream, and not just any dream, a dream that requires that Trafalgar Law be with Luffy when he finds the One Piece. How can I say this with such certainty? Well, as we learned in Odin's flashback, you learn about the D when you find One Piece. If Law wants to accomplish his dream of learning his checkered fate, he's going to have to realize his fate is intertwined closely with Luffy's. Now, obviously, Law has known this for some extent for a while, perhaps as far back as when he saved Luffy at Marineford. Once again, just to be clear, Law's dream requires him to be at Luffy's side when Luffy arrives at Laugh Tale. Law now has a place in the story after Dressrosa. His place in the story isn't to perform the immortality operation and die. No, Law needs to live, and Law needs to be with Luffy. The narrative Oda has just spun requires it. Now, some have claimed that Law is going to try to pull a big mom and try to kidnap Robin, but come on, Law has shown time and time again that he is on Luffy's side. There's really no debating that at this point. Now, some people have also said he could be a member of Sword. Now, this also is not the case. We've seen Law's personal inner monologue about his wishes. They don't involve the same things Smoker or Kobe care about. He's not a Marine. He wants to find out what his middle name is. So with those things out of the way, I will admit that there are a few possible things holding him back, but let's see if they really are obstacles. These things, after all, could be removed fairly easily. For example, for a while, his bounty matched Luffy's. That was a big no-no for a crew member. However, since Whole Cake, that has changed big time. Now, Luffy's bounty is 3 times what Law's is. And let's make one thing clear. Oda does not care about new members having higher bounties than other existing members. Just look at Jinbei after all. The biggest excuse people use to say Law won't join the crew is the fact that he is part of a crew already, the captain in fact. And to that I reply, what about the Usopp Pirates, Baroque Works, the Frankie family, and most importantly, the Sun Pirates? 4 of the past Straw Hats were leaders of organizations comparable to Law's pitiful crew. Not to mention the fact that right after Law's dream was introduced, Oda conveniently wrote the Heart Pirates out of the rest of the arc. Yeah, but we've even seen Law recruit new members, you may say. So what? We've seen Jinbei do the same. We've seen him recruit Wadatsumi to his crew. But Law wants to be king of the pirates, you may say. Well, does he? No. He specifically stated what his dreams were at each stage of his life. First, to murder, then to murder just one guy. And now, his dream is something else entirely. Yeah, but he'll be part of the Grand Fleet, you may say. No, he won't. Luffy didn't really know or even like any of the people who joined the fleet. On the other hand, Law is his friend. Luffy wants Law to travel with him. Luffy asked Law to join his crew. Law has a dream. Luffy saved him, and Law has a sad backstory. And believe it or not, Law has a place on Luffy's crew.
Yo! Geigo! Hey there!
Don't leave without subbing.
Hey there!
Don't leave without liking.
Hey there!
Don't forget to comment. Hit the bell, hit the bell, hit the bell.